All right, guys, we are here with Mariano from Quijano Cymbals. This is part two. We had a conversation about it over a year ago. Is that right?
I think so. It
Yeah.
had to be something. I was still in the old workshop, so yeah.
Yeah. So you're now in a new workshop, and I think both of us have probably, evolved and changed so much since that last conversation. And it was just this was an inevitable part two. We had to have a part two to this because I
Yeah,
really enjoyed our first conversation. So, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm now try. I'm now, let's say, finally, but not really. It's just the first step of this new stage of trying to dedicate solely to doing symbols. So that's challenging. It's new. It's somehow it's refreshing, but now everything is on my shoulders somehow, right? Like nothing won't happen unless I make it happen. Not like it wasn't like that before, but like at least before I could slack off in the workshop because I always had the other job that I could pay my rents with and stuff.
Yeah.
But now I feel like the workshop is now elevated in responsibilities and there's no slack time and I have to like somehow make it happen. You know how it feels? It feels like this saying, when I was making music, when I was actually trying to go that route, the ideal that no matter how you felt, no matter if it was raining or not, if something happened on your life, like the stage was sacred. Like you had to go to the stage and perform, and obviously put yourself on it. So if you were feeling like crap, sure, that can be a new route for expression, but it could never be an excuse to
Mm.
not be there. Now I feel like the workshop is becoming a bit that, and it's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, we talked in the last episode about just our kind of shared or similar journeys of like we wanted to be professional musicians, and we kind of realized that there was like something in us that didn't have. I don't want to say it didn't have what it took, but there was just there was like a piece missing or like an ingredient missing that other people seem to have, and I describe it personally just as a uh like a very extreme level of curiosity about the instrument. I had more like uh obligation. I felt more obligation and more shame about not practicing. And
Yeah.
I didn't have language for that until I started making cymbals and became so enamored with the craft. And I was so curious, I just dove so deep into it. And I realized after the fact, like that's what I was missing when it came to actually being as a player. Like you just need this voracious curiosity, and that
Yeah.
curiosity will take you. It'll make you practice. Like you won't even be thinking about practicing. Like you'll
Exactly.
just
It's not
be doing it.
practice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll just
Yeah.
be doing it because you can't do anything else. You have to get down
Yeah.
into the shop and see if I try this one type of shape, what sound will happen. Um,
Exactly.
and so maybe that's kind of where the conversation of like, are we craftsmen or are we artists can come in. I mean, there is a craft that we're doing. Like we're not making music, which people would definitely classify music as an art
Yeah.
form. We're making a product,
Yeah.
but it's a product that has sound, and the sound is crafted, from our ears. So it's like in a way, it's not even that much different from music because we are crafting this thing that will have a sound, and it has to
Yeah.
come from our own mind first, or at least from some sort of intent.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like maybe the aspect of being an instrument that is, I don't know what word exactly will describe it. I'm sure there's a signifier or a, like, let's say a definition already for it, but I'm going to say like a non-concrete instrument,
Mm,
meaning it is non-tuned. It doesn't really resonate in a certain frequency that it should do so to actually fit whatever musical context it should. It doesn't have to have a precise shape as a guitar or many other wooden uh,
yeah.
with a resonant box they have like already like the very precise historical culturally appropriate shapes and tuning, while the cymbal is not. It's a hunk of metal that can be X or Y, and anything in the middle is kind of a choice of whoever makes it, or the randomness of the process of whoever is making it. Sometimes I feel like choice plays only like around 80% of the actual final result that you
Yeah.
obtain. I personally always want to bring it upwards closer to the 100, but I have no clue if that will ever happen or if that is possible or not. But like I feel for me the gray area where you can actually debate the artistry versus craftsmanship of it is in the yeah, it's in the definition of what a symbol should be or is. And um but actually, now that I think about it, maybe even not, because wouldn't you call, let's say, a luthier that makes guitars a master luthier that has been doing it for 30 years, a pupil that became a master, you know, like the whole
Yeah.
trajectory? Would you call them non-artists because what they're doing has rules and has expected outcomes?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know.
That's, I mean, yeah, that's kind of that feels, that's a difficult question. I don't know that I have an answer
Yeah.
to it. Because yeah, there's we are dealing in kind of a weird, we are in a weird kind of genre of instrument makers because there is not set rules.
Yeah.
And it's been kind of the Wild West when it comes to the manufacturing of this instrument. It's been,
Mm.
history, in China of them making gongs and cymbals in China. And then obviously we have the Turkish tradition, and then it's expanding. And now there's a Brazilian tradition, and then there's the American tradition that was born out of the Turkish tradition. But it has in a way kind of been like the Wild West, where there's like different forms a cymbal takes, but there's
Yeah.
not really like a right or wrong answer as to like this is good and this is bad, because they're all just making a sound, and we're not making a pitched instrument. So that's where it's hard to kind of instill rules into something that, I think it's hard to nail down because we're not making a cymbal to fit in a scale or have a certain pitch, because there's
Yeah.
a bajillion overtones and notes and all kinds of stuff going on in one piece of metal.
Yeah.
So it's different I guess if you take my definition of what it takes to go from artist or from craftsman to artist, then you would have to argue, well, someone who's a master luthier is not an artist then, because they're just doing kind of the pre whatever. But there's still imagination. I think there's still the craftsmanship has to have imagination and has to have, like, there's different designs and
Yeah.
sizes, and even within the form, which in a way is what we do. There's like, we have, a bell and a profile and a taper and all these things, and we're working within these very general, broad uh, parameters to try to create something that has the kind of sound we want. So
Which, funny enough, are relatively simple in the sense that a profile could be infinite in the sense that you could, well, not with B20 bronze. You do have material limitations where the bronze can actually allow you to bend it. But my point is that usually profiles tend to be a shape. Like you wouldn't have a profile that has three S curves at the end, or that dips like 50% of its profile down the middle next to the bell. You tend to have like a bow
yeah,
shape to it. So the variations are relatively limited in comparison to what you could do with just a flat sheet of any other material, right? Which is maybe like more on the sculpture side. I think steel
yeah,
has allowed you to be more creative in, let's say, in the shaping aspect if you were working with only steel, but bronze doesn't
yeah,
behave in that way. But you were mentioning something, and I was thinking about, well, we could speak about the idea of rules, yeah, and expected outcomes, and let's say tradition and things that should be, because historically they were that way. The violin has this shape and has these things because obviously there's a function to it, and it might help in resonance or whatever, in maybe in vibrating correctly and amplifying certain parts of the spectrum. But it's also a cultural thing that's been done for the last 400 years or so. So there's also that, and we don't have that just
right,
yet in the independence, because we separate ourselves from the little bit of tradition that there is or was in Turkey.
Yeah.
But then when it comes back to the topic of art, I would think that also intention is a big aspect behind it. The same way that you would have, I feel like maybe separating between product and art is another perspective that we could take, because I would say there's probably the same thing happening in many other variants or branches of artistry that you and I and any other person would naturally say, yeah, that's art. Painting, that's art, whatever it is. But would you call a person, let's say nowadays I've seen them like crazy popping out in Instagram, like these people that make what looks like posters, and they all look the same, and
Mm.
they all, like, as soon as some like more pale sepia like pastelish art style that looks kind of like comic but not comic, it has like this combination of what's the name of this Japanese card anime
Yeah. Yeah.
director that made all of the beautiful movies,
I know exactly. I know like one of the movies you're talking
that
about,
made
or like,
Totoro, and that made Princess Mononoke, and all of these beautiful like kid movies that I think are incredible for kids. Like they are magical, mystical. Well, now there's a bunch of people doing that in Instagram and clearly selling them as posters, as whatever. And I don't think you would call that art. That is
Mhm.
product. Somebody using a medium to create a product and sell it as a product. And maybe the art, maybe he's a craftsman of poster
Right.
images or whatever, right?
You
So
kind of you're
intention,
talking a little bit about like the whoever's on the forefront and then the people that follow. So it's like if you're kind of out front.
not really. I'm speaking about the intention behind it. I'm speaking about the fact that there's an intention behind not that the selling aspect is what transforms it into non-art, is that the intention of this piece to only be a selling point,
Yeah.
and there being no real, let's say, um serious thought process, or maybe not thought process, maybe things can be automatic, but at least emotionality to it, or more than that, some form of like zen approach to um, taking this production as a moment of introspection, even if it's not about the instrument, but about oneself.
Yeah.
These things that are not part of a process. If you're just saying, I have a hunk of metal, let's just give it 3 blows, it would look kind of like this and people will buy it.
Right.
That might not be artistry, but that is a form of craftsmanship. So I
Yeah.
think intention is also a big part of that
Yeah.
discussion.
I think
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm actually getting at with the thought of, I think like if you're trailblazing, if you're like, you got a machete and you're hacking your way through the jungle to try to find a path or try to make a path, you're out front, you don't really know what the future holds. Like I would argue that guys like us got into making cymbals and we didn't see a career in it. We were just like, I'm interested in this craft and I want to see what's possible. And that's kind of the intention of that, is very much like discovery,
Yeah.
curiosity, exploration. And then you have, a lot of people that come behind that. If anybody, say anybody cuts a path, trailblazes, and it works, and tons of people flock to them and they buy their product, and they, that person gets more popular and they start making good money doing it, then inevitably you have all these people that come behind and sort of walk the same path that
Mm,
person walked.
mm,
The intent there is to, oh, there's, like you said, the intent there is like, oh, this is popular, so I'll do this.
yeah, exactly.
Whereas the people that are kind of doing it first, and I will be the first to say that, like, I'm not really, I wouldn't call myself a trailblazer by any means, because I'm looking back at like Craig Lorison and
Yeah.
Spitz and Matt Nolan and Collingwood, and those guys did it before me, and like, but on the other side of the coin with that, it's like I wasn't looking at them going, wow, they're making a lot of money, I should do the same thing. I was looking at them going, wow, what they do is so cool and it's so inspiring, and to be able to craft your own cymbals, like
Mhm.
I thought you could only go to Zildjian for that. Like that was the thing that got me
Yeah.
like sort of just what's the word? Like it got me really into the idea of exploring this as a craft and seeing. really it was never about selling. More so, it was just like, am I capable of doing this? Like, could I actually do this? You know, and then as it works and as people come to you and start buying your product, then it just allows you to make your art. It kind of that becomes like the fuel for you to keep going. Because obviously, if we never sell if either of us never sold a cymbal, then we'd have to stop
Absolutely.
cymbals, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I'm interested for, you know, because this could be a cool topic. You're talking about how like you're full-time cymbalsmith now, and
Yes.
so now you have the pressures of that, and the I mean, like, this is something I've been thinking about for years, the pressure to produce and kind of do the thing that you know will work. And I think this is I know a lot of musicians that have fallen into this trap. It's like you kind of like follow this creative spirit, and they put out music and it just blows up because there's something about it that's so real. It's so connected creatively, and it speaks to other people. And the heart of it was for that musician was really just to create. And then on the back of that, they go, okay, now I got to make album number 2. What is that
Yeah.
going to be about? Like,
Yeah.
because you're like, okay, I can just do the thing I did that everybody loved, you know, and so that's kind of I mean, that's like a really common thing, obviously, with musicians. But you know, for us, as when that weight fully hits us, and we're going, okay, so how am I going to feed my family, or how am I going to pay rent?
Yeah.
And you kind of go like, it can be like a trap, I think, and it's tough to, you know, stay focused on the goal, because you have had some amazing drummers pick up your cymbals lately, and like you're getting recognition right now, and
Yeah.
like deservedly so. You're getting recognition for your great work, and so that's always the battle, I think. And so I'm wondering, like, where your thoughts are. Have you thought about that much, or is that kind of entered your lexicon so far?
Well, no, I don't know entirely, if I'm honest. I don't know if 3 months is enough for me to really be I mean, in these 3 months, what I've done is that I did a big production, a big batch. I mean, at least big for me, which was 28 or 29 cymbals, can't remember. And now I'm working on others. And I don't think I want to go and make another 30 cymbals in 45 days again. It's possible. It's definitely possible, but I don't know how I feel about the intensity of that, and how it affects me, and also how it affects not the end result, because I do think I had really good results with the last batch. It's more about how I feel with the result. And and how able I am to nurture that result in more subdivided stages along the way.
Yeah.
So I think I'm gonna probably try to settle in another modality of production, and I'm gonna try to make it like smaller batches but more regularly. That
Yeah.
seems a bit more intelligent, I think. But at the moment, 3 months into it, the pressures that I feel and are not really about comparing it with what was prior, are more, I think they might be more like internal, emotional, and psychological state pressures that have much more to do with my personality and who I am than the actual craft or artistry itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm feeling good, and I don't have fears regarding what I produce. In fact, the other way around, I feel a bit more solid,
Mm.
uh, which has been a big step, because throughout my 2 years, it's always a very different perspective or response, which I get from the audience, from the customers, to what I really feel inside. Like I've always had a bit of a sense of uncertainty, and I think the best word is I never felt solid. I felt yeah, and I
I
feel
connect with that too. I connect with that a lot. Yeah, feeling you kind of just don't. You're like putting out a batch and going, these might suck. you know?
Yeah, and the bizarrest thing, which is that I just finished a symbol yesterday, and I sit down on the anvil today, and I feel like I don't know what I'm supposed to like. I don't know what I'm doing. It feels like, do
Yeah.
I know how to make a symbol? I just made one yesterday, but again, I go back to the page is blank, and I know how to make it grow, but I'm not exactly sure how. I guess the connections between, first of all, what I want. That is always a big question. What do I want?
Mm.
Sometimes is unknown. Most times is, well, I'll go and see where it ends.
Yeah.
But I ask the question, what do I want constantly when I'm making a symbol? I feel like that is the main engine, right? When we speak about intentionality.
Yeah.
Um, so that is the first like block or wall step. And then from that point on is all of the questions of, well, yeah, I can do this, but will that um, inevitably arrive at the point which I think it should? And obviously, I do have answers and I do have good ideas, and I've been doing this for a while, but it doesn't feel that way. It always feels
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
I kind of struggle with like it's like picking a symbol and like going, what is this going to be from the flat blank? And then
Yeah,
having so it's like I always like hold everything loosely, and it's because it feels like at a certain point you have to commit.
yeah,
What point do you commit? Do you commit before you swing the first hammer strike, or do you commit halfway through, or like at 90%, or and you kind of like because for me I tend to be so um I take every symbol individually, so it's like I'm not gonna just copy paste. I
mm,
did this to the last one, so I'll do the same to this one and make five of them. It's like I'm always trying to like make I don't know, give the proper weight to each blank and
yeah,
knowing that it wants to be something and I'm different than when I made that other one that turned out so great or whatever. Like I'm different then. So I'm in a different state of mind. I'm maybe my hand's a little bit more sore. So I'm gonna swing the hammer differently.
yeah,
So it's like you kind of have to hold things a little bit loosely and kind of it's like like confidence versus kind of like allowing there to be mystery.
yeah. But I feel a bit like now is where I can tell you about why do I feel scared. I feel scared mainly because now I see the times that it would or could take me to produce what I would like to produce at the rate at which I want it. And um and I am not sure that that amount is viable, like that will be a sustainable attempt. That maybe throughout a year, it little by little will actually either stagnate or decrease.
Yeah.
And the scary part is like, so does this world demand from me to start approaching it? I don't know. I don't know how exactly. So that is, yeah. I mean, it could be sustainable, but I don't know how fast I could grow certain things that I would like to grow at this pace.
Yes.
Um, Machines cost a lot of money. Anything from the silliest thing. I've been wanting to stamp and to brand my symbols for such a long time. Um, my previous logo, I hated it. I made it myself. Now I finally have a logo that somebody else made for me. That we worked for like 4 months on that logo.
It looks
Um,
great, by the way.
yeah, I absolutely love it. And she helped me. She's great designer from Portugal. She helped me not only understand, well, create a new logo. I have a stamp that I could actually physically stamp on symbols that doesn't look like my logo that I really like. Um, and she allowed me to understand a bit better how to use simple fonts and simple things and colors to better suit an image. It doesn't have to be like uber how you call it, like corporative, which I didn't want to, but just small ideas of how to use very simple concepts to one's advantage. So I am really happy with that. And I feel like, okay, now I can finally go ahead and put something on a symbol, which I feel is important because my symbols are all naked. But okay, how do I do so? What do I need for it? And every little point in investment that I have to make to grow, that is what scares me. It scares me because I don't know how fast I am going to be able to approach them at the rate that I would like. I think that will be the most important challenge this coming months,
Yeah.
getting to know how I feel about being only a cymbalsmith, and that's it.
Every little one of those purchases and the processes that you refine is more weight. It's like more weight on the end result, which is people giving you money to buy your cymbals. And I've been thinking about that a lot and realizing that, I mean, I'm going through some like hand, like soreness, like a new level of soreness that I've never felt. Like 2 years in, I started having like some trigger finger stuff, and I just needed to build muscle. So I kind of powered through it, like not wise, but I powered through the pain. And eventually the pain went away because my muscles kind of developed, and those muscles sort of insulate all of the joints. But I've been going on like a crazy production, like I don't know, a crazy run for like months now, and it's finally catching up to me. And I'm
Numbers
having,
wise,
what's that?
numbers wise, meaning you've been producing a lot of cymbals.
A
Yeah.
lot. And it hasn't been like, oh, I'm selling so much. It's actually like I feel like really intensely like I'm trying to get to that point where I've explored all of the nooks and crannies of this craft that I can. I'm like hammering way more than I need to just to get orders out. I'm hammering to search after this sound and trying to make this kind of cymbal and this and try different things. Like it's been like a really intense exploratory phase, and I'm realized I kind of hit the wall and realized I gotta slow down, or I'm gonna be 5-10 years from now I won't be able to swing a hammer at all if I keep doing it like this. So anyway, but
That that is
that's
an interesting topic. No, I actually like that topic because I've I've heard that being said and explored by many different people, and obviously I am one of the, let's say, the new ones, so I couldn't speak to the level to which any of the people that I've heard mentioning this could speak. But I have a feeling that it doesn't have to be. I have a feeling that physical wise, maybe right now the specialization of like how would you call it? Like these guys that would train elite athletes,
Mhm.
that they know exactly what exercise you need to do if you're a first base runner in baseball, which is different than if you are like a whatever, and like each position has their own specific trainer for the muscles.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some development that, or some training, some form, some technique, something that we could do to make ourselves be able to hammer all throughout our adult life until 60 years old if we want it. Because even though the impact and the vibration that we receive from hammering, it's 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 a thing. I mean, it's not nothing. The hammers are not that heavy. I mean, they're heavier than a normal hammer, but they are not
Yeah.
incredibly heavy. Like if you develop enough muscle mass, it shouldn't be a problem to. And actually, I wonder, do blacksmiths suffer from the same thing? Because
Yes.
yeah, all right,
Yeah. So I'm actually currently working with a physical trainer and
okay,
working on it, coming up with a cymbal smith program. So like
yeah,
posture stuff, kind
yeah,
of exercises we need to do. And like literally this exact thing. We were literally saying, this was like 2 days ago. We were talking about it and we were going like, this is actually like no one's done this, at least in the cymbal smith thing. No one's kind of like pulled together like a routine or a program or whatever it is. But I have done a lot of research into blacksmithing, and there's a lot of
yeah.
guys in the blacksmithing world that talk about this. But I think it's a little different with them because the hammering that a blacksmith does maybe is relatively less than what we do.
True. And now they mostly use the big press
Strip hammer.
hammers
Yeah.
that are actuated by the foot. Yeah, it's true.
But
Yeah,
I've had these the biggest thing that helped me that I got from a blacksmithing guy who's talking, he's like this old guy in his 70s. He's like, I've been doing this for 40 years.
yeah.
And he was talking about different exercises, and he was saying like heavy resistance band training on your fingers, but opening. So like we have so much grip strength
Oh,
here, and what happens is if you get too much strength, like gripping strength,
Yeah.
your arm gets like out of balance. You don't have enough like opening strength. And
And
so,
on the hammer holding hand.
yes, yeah. And probably both, because I mean we're gripping on both sides, we're
Yeah.
gripping this and hammering. And so he was saying like he would get these big rubber bands, like really tight rubber bands, and you just sit there and do these exercises like this.
Hmm.
And I did it for like 6 months, and it helped big time, because it
Wow.
was like it was actually like building muscle that was neglected. Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
it was building that muscle that was neglected, and something about having like a balanced muscle group, like everything's kind of strong, and there's like an equilibrium between gripping and opening. Because I was having like I would wake up and my hands would be almost like locked after
Yeah.
sleeping at night. They'd be
Yeah.
locked here, and then
I
like
feel you.
open them, being like, oh gosh, it's like stiff. And the technique stuff, like the body longevity, and like you were talking earlier about, you were kind of alluding to the fact like, how do I, because once you kind of get into a production mode, your customers get used to how many cymbals you put out. You kind of get on this like rat race, this like hamster wheel, where
Hmm.
you kind of have to keep it up. And so like, what
Yeah.
happens if you injure yourself? What happens if life happens and you need to take a break? It's like you kind of locking yourself into, I have to produce this many cymbals in order to make a living. And you get on that hamster wheel, and you do that until what? Until you, I don't know, until you can't lift a hammer anymore. And I've been thinking about that a lot and just wondering like, man, there's got to be some like smart ways for us to navigate that.
I'm sure there is. That I don't want to. That is the one topic that whenever I hear, I mean, nothing wrong with a pneumatic hammer. Like it's a tool, and you know it. And I think we've discussed this, or if not with me, you discussed it with another person in the
Yeah.
podcast. Nothing wrong, but if the excuse is to alleviate the hand, I don't want to agree with that, because I want to believe that I shouldn't have to have a pneumatic hammer to have my hand be capable for a really long time. And I mean really long time, because unless something happens, I don't, this, for me, it won't stop until it has to stop, so to
Right.
speak. So,
Yeah.
so I
And
don't,
what you're
yeah,
saying to me feels like I think that's a really valid perspective. I think that probably with it requires that you're going to have a slower pace relative.
yeah, sure. Because that's what the pneumatic hammer does. Like it speeds up the process like
Yeah.
MFR, but yeah,
But I think one thing that's interesting about this, like I've been thinking, when I interviewed Burke from Bronze Pie and Burke's Works, but his company's Bronze Pie.
yeah, yeah.
He was just going on and on about our price. We talked a lot about prices in that episode, um, and just about how like we really need to up our prices. Like we're kind of all, there's a few independent guys that have taken that next step to increase prices. And obviously you're going to have like a drop in the sales because you got, prices are higher, blah blah blah. But it's kind of in line with, are we playing a short game, or are we trying to build something that's going to have
Yeah.
longevity? If I sell my cymbals for the same price as a Zildjian K Con,
Yeah.
that is, I might get more sales in the immediate, but is that going to last me? It's like my cymbals, your cymbals, whoever, any of the independent guys, put our cymbals up against a K-Con or a Peisty Masters any day, and I'll take the independent
Sure. Yeah.
Cymbalsmith cymbal any day. I get a lot of K Constantinople's in for modifications, and they're just they're just average. But they cost like a lot. So, that's one thing I've been thinking about is, man, is it possible for us to build a career and provide for ourselves and actually charge what we should charge? That would be like what our cymbals are actually worth. Like, is that something what are your thoughts on that?
That is a really, I would say, that would be a topic that I might have the harder time speaking about, not because I don't want to, but because I feel the most ignorant about it.
Hmm.
Because I came into this world being a musician, being an employee, being somebody that throughout all of my adult life, I've been doing, let's call them, I don't want to sound offensive to anybody, but I'm gonna call them low-level jobs, mainly because they require no previous skill to go into them, right?
Yeah.
We're speaking about service jobs in general. We're speaking about tourism jobs. We're speaking about kitchen jobs. Obviously, not all kitchens, but
Yeah.
most kitchens, believe me, they just need you to know how to hold a knife, and you're good to go. Like
Yeah.
that's it. Um, so I've been doing those, and I've been a musician, and knowing exactly what I'm worth, and what is the value of the things that I've been doing. It's a bit complex because I mean, you know, the world of the musician, and it's I would have, without the workshop, my mindset would still be a mindset that now for me is unrecognizable. Like, meaning, how much do I pay for rent? How much do I pay for food? How much do I earn a month? That uh, was crumbs, and it has been crumbs all of my life. So when I get into this, I feel very uncomfortable with the monetary aspect of what it means to be a cymbalsmith, and what it means to charge. I know that it's a job that has that costs, and there's a high, let's say there's a high value to it. But how do I convince myself to have the how you call it, like the, it's not certainty, but it's like the confidence.
Yeah.
How do I convince myself to have the confidence of being able to say that out loud, to tell to people, to put it out there, and to not be afraid, as you were saying, that maybe now that I'm finally trying to make it alone, that it's taken me 2 years and a half to get to this point, and now I'm gonna pump up the prices, and suddenly I'm gonna see nobody else buying anymore, and I'm like,
Yeah.
dang, do I
Yeah.
have to go back to being a tour guide again,
Right.
right?
Right.
Um, yeah, it's a complicated topic because I don't know how to balance it. I don't know how to. I'm not an economist. I'm not a business person. I know nothing about markets, and I know how to do this. And that's it. I don't know much more. And it's a topic that I would like to know more about, if I'm absolutely honest, and be better at. The other day, I had a customer here in the workshop that explained me something super cool, dude, that I've never thought of that way. He was trying to explain to me the approach of understanding my how much does it cost an hour of my work, right? And I feel like up until that point, I have been doing it the other way around always, meaning I was I have always been calculating the worth of my price with the final outcome divided by the hours that it took me to make it. And he was trying to explain to me how it's actually the other way around. You pretty much have to graduate, you have to take into account everything that you do, sum that into hours, and then pretty much sum all of your, let's say, expenses, subtract that from all of your income, divide those numbers to figure out where are you, and figure out if you feel comfortable with that being the number in comparison to what the median in the country in which you are should actually be or not. And I've never done that in my life, and I haven't done it yet. Now I know how to do it, at least, but I
Yeah.
just haven't done it. And when he told me what the median was for Belgium, I was like, man,
Yeah.
I would have to increase like 30% or more the price of my cymbal if I want to get anywhere close to that. That is crazy.
Right. And you're talking about jobs like the median is the job
Yeah,
that
the
a
median
lot
for
of
an
times,
independent, which is what I am, a self-employed independent in Belgium. So
yeah.
yeah,
And so that, the self-employed independent, that's gonna there is skill. Like a self-employed independent has like there's a lot of skill there.
yeah,
And so yeah, I am fully on board with that. I think about, all the time that I spend in the morning while I'm drinking my coffee, perusing YouTube and watching people's interviews. And I literally like my mind is I'm always trying to be a sponge, like soaking up any little thing that like this drummer said this, and then I learned that, and then I talked to this person, and everything is like I'm trying to let everything influence me, you know, and obviously you like take it through filters, and if it's garbage information, you just throw it away. But you always want to be like absorbing stuff, and not many people are like that. Like people like to go to work and then they like to go home and not think
Yeah.
about work at all, and they like to just sit and watch Netflix. And I'm like, I'll be like watching a YouTube video about, another independent cymbalsmith posted this video, and I'm watching it and I'm kind of going, what did he do there? And it's reminding me of this other interview. And so I watched that. I'm doing that at 10 p.m. at night while I'm also answering emails. It's just, and you think about like that level of intensity towards a thing, like it should in an ideal world command a high price if the product is, if people deem the product to be valuable.
Yeah.
But it's hard because it's like I don't know. I just don't want to deal with the business stuff. I just want to
And
be.
yeah, if in a perfect world, I would come to a workshop, make an instrument, go home, be able to have a meal, and I'll be happy. Like not be kicked out of an apartment. I don't
Yes.
need anything. I don't want to know anything about business. Believe me, if somehow I was able to sell a cymbal without speaking a word, that would be for me the happiest thing. How much it costs, I don't know. It's there. But like being away from that would make me definitely happy, but it's not the way it goes. And I have to make peace with that.
Yeah, it's
But
the necessary evil we have. Like if we
yeah,
want, we're talking about longevity. Like if we want to be hammering, like the other aspect is like the business stuff. I'm trying to teach myself to like accept that and be more open to learning how to really do business well. Like I want to get there. I want to get there to the point where I'm like, yeah, I know how to do business. I know what it takes to build a brand. I know what it means to accurately value what the product is. I know what it is that I'm offering, and I feel confident that I am going to deliver on my promise, like that you're going to get an instrument that is inspiring. And you know,
can you hear that
what's that?
on your side? Can you hear that? No, right? You're fine.
No, yeah,
Okay, good. I have my neighbor he's a woodworker and there's saws and stuff. But I
fine.
was
Yeah,
just wondering if the audio quality of the podcast was still.
it's all great. Yeah, I don't hear anything, so we're good. Yeah. But I maybe, yeah, this is the we're wading in deep waters. I feel like that have
Yeah.
it's maybe we'll do a part 3 in another year, and then we'll have more answers
Yeah.
on that side. So
I'll tell you one thing on my side to finish that topic, which is what I think I just realized while listening to you, was that you're saying that your goal is you want to be a good businessman, you want to know this, and you want to be solid and stuff. I remember that when you talk to me, like, I don't know, 14 months ago or whatever, I was on the opposite side of that spectrum, saying like, I don't want to. I want simple things. I want the minimum required. I am happy with being able to have things be, let's say, just a tiny bit above neutral, right? Above zero, not negative. I don't need to be uber positive. If it's just a tiny bit and it allows the flow to continue, I am happy. That's what I want, because want I want there's a word in Spanish that I cannot translate to English, which is que hacer. Que hacer means like the doing it. What I want is the doing it of
yeah,
it, right? And if I can, let's say, give myself the dignified minimum to keep on doing it, I'm happy. I don't need anything else. And what I've kind of like realized during this last, let's call them 6 months or so, which is when I've been seeing a bit more of growth of my name and of people being a bit more aware of me, is that somehow it feels like the game of having a business will never allow you to actually be on the minimum. That
yeah,
if you keep yourself at that level, the system, the way that things are made, like, are gonna sunk you.
yeah,
You need constant momentum. Is almost like a balloon that needs to constantly be connected to a source of gas to
yeah,
keep on going. Otherwise, it's gonna deflate. You
yeah,
cannot keep it steady. Like, it doesn't let you. Uh, Taxes doesn't let you. TVA doesn't let you. Everything is always increasing. Like
yeah.
from gas to
Price of
electricity, like
copper. Yeah,
like yeah, for example, like even the people that you rent from, like every year the contract changes and now it's more expensive. So nothing is allowing you to keep it steady. And it seems to me like that dream that I had might not be possible just because of how things are.
Yeah. And
Knows maybe.
the other thing is that like someone's eventually going to come along that's just going to work a little harder than you, or maybe have a little bit better
Yeah,
marketing than you, or they're going to have like more of a platform, or they,
yeah,
they have
competition.
better connections or whatever. And then that's another thing that like they rise and you just, and it's, yeah, I get it big time. I'm like, it's,
I do not like it a bit.
yeah, it sucks. It's
But
not,
again, it's kind of like do or die, right? It's accept it or yeah. And
yeah, it's,
I
and that's
think I
kind of the
think
thing that,
artistry. I think it might be a bit of an artistry to allow yourself to do this, to do what we're doing. Keep yourself at a creative, at passionate approach to it, while simultaneously trying to weave into the world of of selling, businessmanship, whatever it's called.
yeah.
That might also, I I I would say that for me, since it's quite hard, I would count that as being part of the artistry more than the craftsmanship.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. We like to think that being a businessman is like that's anti-art, or that's like, you know what I mean? Like, and there are definitely examples where that is anti-art, like consumerism for consumerism's sake, you know, I think can be anti-art.
Yeah.
But just to say that as a blanket term that being business savvy is anti-art is, I think that's ridiculous. I think there's a way to be an artist in the way that you conduct business and the way you price your stuff, the way you present yourself and market. That I feel like that's like you're saying, it's like a whole nother side to the to the art that we're engaging in with making these symbols. Because I like my personally my take so far has been like I got into this and it was like most of the symbol smiths don't most of the symbol smiths like want to keep everything close to the chest, and they just want to do the work. They don't want to like tell people about the work, and that's their personality. And I just don't have that personality. I have like a little bit of a different thing where I've always been the kind of person that wants to like open things up, like just pull back the curtain and say, this is what's going on. Which I realize can be sort of anti, uh, it can sort of like get demystify things in a way that might not be beneficial. But it's like I just thought like, okay, I don't really see any symbolsmith out there that's like, I mean, Dave Collingwood obviously has been like teaching other symbolsmiths, but as far as like someone that just kind of puts a lot of stuff out there, has a podcast, talks about these things, um, and I don't know, it's like I don't know that it's actually good for business. I mean, I it could be or it could not be, but it's like it's kind of the topic we were talking about at the beginning is like we all just have to go with our own like what we're inspired by and our ideas, and we have to kind of go with it even if they haven't been done before. And especially like it's good to try to be yourself, and it's like if you have it's good to kind of explore who you are and um I don't know, like try things that feel a little bit dangerous or feel like a little bit. Do you know what I'm trying to say when I say that? Like,
Yeah, and also to counterpart a bit on what you're saying right now, I absolutely feel you and agree with you. But I also think that one aspect that you might be leaving out is the fact that it requires for somebody to be incredibly well organized time-wise and to have a motivation the size of a freighter train or something to be able to do podcasts, uh, Patreon, uh, drum business, cymbal business, percussion, minor percussion business, podcast, whatever else. Like my time, let's say, organization with only the cymbals missing part of it already feels cramped, and I wouldn't be able to do any of the other things. So the fact that you're doing it might speak much more to not to the fact that people out there might not want to do it, which I think most people out there don't want to be open. And I
Yeah.
include myself in that package. I feel like I like the dancing aspect of it, where I don't like very much opening up, but I like to tease. I like teasing. I
Yeah.
like teasing, being silly and being ridiculous. That I love.
I love your
And
captions, by the way, on all your posts. I love them.
the ridiculousness, giving a peek of reality of an
Yes.
inside, but at the same time, I really don't like that much. But my point is that it might be much less of that and much more of the fact that we can't just really, that I can't, and that I bet you many other people also would have a hard time doing as much stuff as you are doing right now. So it's also a personality thing. It's also being
Yeah.
able to, yeah,
I kind of see it. I mean, thanks for saying that. I don't see. I feel like I've had so much help. Like I don't really feel like I've been doing it by myself. Uh,
sure, okay, yeah,
and my I'm not trying to like diminish what you said because that does mean a lot. But like, um, I worked for my dad for about 15 years in his business. He
yeah,
was installing sound systems and lighting systems, and I was doing that while I was trying to be a professional musician. And I had a big old failure. I lost this gig that I had. I was touring the world, and I lost this gig.
yeah.
And it was, we talked about that on the last
I
episode.
remember, yeah, yeah,
And I was just distraught and desperate. And I went back to just working for my dad. And I was crawling in attics, running cable through attics and hanging speakers. And I just had this thing where I was like, I just want to try, maybe to make some drums and see what happens. And then he just like jumped on it full on. He was like, all right, cool. I'll be your capital investor on,
yeah.
and I'll give you some like seed money from this business that we have together. Like I'll give you some money so you can buy some parts. And so like, I always feel like from the beginning, I've had this, maybe not a leg up per se, because I still have had to work pretty hard, but there has been like a support system around me.
Yeah.
So I feel like really, really lucky for that. And then I have obviously, really supportive wife, and she helps with the business too. But um, it is kind of like I feel like I've gotten really lucky being able to enter like the state of play that I feel like I can enter almost on a daily basis. Like I'm today, me and my guy are we're prototyping this new percussion thing, and it's like I could just tell him, "Hey, give me like 5 prototypes like this," and then we talk about it, we tweak them, we do all this,
Mm.
like, and there's no reason for it. I don't really have like this idea that wow, this product will sell a lot. Like I'm just thinking, like, is it possible to get the sound I have in my head by doing this? And then I'm doing that on the cymbal side, like on a daily basis too. So it's like I feel like if anything, if I had any desire for all of us independents, is that we would find a way practically through business, through like good business practice, we could all find a way practically to put a support structure around us so that we can just explore and like we can just follow the passion of hammering the cymbal and seeing what does this shape do to the sound, and can I capture elements of all these sounds I love? Can I slam them into one cymbal and make the ultimate ride? Obviously, I don't know. There's no perfect ride, but the pursuit of the perfect ride is worth it.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know where I'm necessarily going with that, but I've been thinking a lot about the process itself. And here's a maybe a separate topic. So yesterday I had a drummer friend come over, and he still has like the number 4 cymbal I ever made years ago. So I literally have etched in the bottom 4. Uh,
Nice.
and he brought it, and he's like, dude, I've been playing this cymbal, like just every gig. It stays on the kit. It's like one of my favorite cymbals I've ever played. And I'm playing it, and I'm looking at it. I'm like looking at the shape, going like, yikes, like looking at this massive lathe chatter on the underside, just
Mm.
massive lathe chatter. Just looking at it, and he was talking about how he loves that. He's like, yeah, that's my favorite part, that weird, like ugly chatter underneath the bell or next to the bell. And then he starts talking about why he likes it. And then I was just having this whole thing wash over me of like, man, I need to go back and learn from myself, you
Yeah.
know, like go, almost just start over, like just fully come back around to like beginning when I didn't know how to swing a hammer or how to get a good shape. And like, what's here? There's something really imperfect and ugly about this cymbal. And it's really inspiring to this drummer. And so have you been I guess the question would be, how do you uh, juggle expanding and getting better at your art, at your craft, but also embracing kind of the exploration or the like seeking imperfection, like seeking like kind of a seeking, obviously none of us are trying to make like super pretty, clean sounding cymbals. We're trying to make cymbals that are inspiring. And there's levels of grit and in complexity in there. Like, how do you look at the pursuit of perfection on one side and the pursuit of inspiration, and how does that stuff marry into your work?
So I would say that the first thing is that I don't think I look for imperfection, um, though I might, though there's a bug inside me that might want to, but I don't actively look for imperfection. Rather, it happens and it annoys me. That's a bit more of my approach to it. And of course, as time goes by, that annoyance, nuisance, has little bit by little has morphed and shifted. Is sometimes a pleasure. It's sometimes disheartening. It's many different things. But I would say that it cycles. It's definitely cycles, and I feel like enough time has to go by and for you to perceive a cycle. And I think it also requires you to be open to to seeing those cycles. Otherwise, I think they would just be part of a continuum of your approach to creating. But I do see myself finding cycles in which I am trying very hard to achieve something clearer. And I'm going to use the word clearer not as a sound descriptor, but more as a philosophic approach to it, that I've been trying to be clearer, whatever that might be. And somehow the clearer, the more that I want to achieve clarity, the more murky things become.
Yeah.
And then at a peak of murkiness, somehow I renounce and I see in the murkiness interesting things. And then it's like the cycle goes like that from murkiness to clarity. And I jump in the middle. And for me, if I'm I think I mentioned something like this on the last podcast. And if I didn't, maybe I did, but off recording probably, where I feel at constant conflict with myself. And it's something that weighs on me, and that simultaneously I'm proud of. It's a weird situation.
Yeah.
where I feel that tension of the conflict of what I do, what I am, and what actually I have in front of me and what I've been doing sometimes feels so dissonant.
Yeah.
That my emotional being, it's and and that and that point of break, it's somehow imprinted on the instrument. So somehow I'm like, well, I'm a mess, but at least the instrument is gathering a bit of a mess, and that makes it more human and it makes it more art-like, right? The same way that I don't like, something that it's just jolly polished, crispy, I don't know, colorful. I am not attracted to it somehow. In almost all things art-wise that I've consumed, when there's conflict, when there's suffering, when there's someone going through, for lack of a better word, and I know that I tried not to on the podcast. If anybody meets me in real life, I am awful with words, but I'm honest, whatever. My point is, when there's a heck load of shit behind the thing that it's observable,
Yeah.
That feels so much better as the observer, as the
Yeah.
on the other side, right? Of course, as a creator, it feels like shit. It's awful. I don't like it. I don't want it. I would like to be Zen. I realized that one thing that maybe could be kind of like a little answer to this question, which is that I felt that mastery requires peace.
Okay.
Mastery is a state of peacefulness, and I have no peace at the moment.
Mm.
And also, I don't know if I ever want. I feel like in the forefront of my consciousness, I want that peace. I want that zen. I want to come here, sit calmly on my chair, and go at hammering and allow time to go by, and almost unthinkingly realize a piece and have that piece be a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But there might be something inside me. There might be the pilot that I cannot control that actually wants and nurtures itself from war, from the opposite of peace, from conflict, from all of that. And so I don't know that I would ever actually be a master in that sense. And that for me is what actually, I would say, drive those cycles of how I relate to my instruments and to what I was doing in the past. I have
Yeah.
a very similar story to what you were saying just now, which is that a friend of mine, well, not well, I would love to be able to start calling this person a friend. Fantastic drummer. Again, I haven't spoken to him about this, so I'm not going to mention his name, but it's a person that I met originally like 13 years ago in another country in South America. And it was a beautiful experience. It was in a jazz festival in another country than mine. I was leaving my country. I think it was, if not it was it was the first time that I left my country on my own. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Um, and I went to this place and it was by myself, and it was an experience. Incredible drummer. He went along to become very important for the specific scene of his country at the moment. And we happened to coincide on Instagram. He happened to be in Europe. He came to the workshop. It was a fantastic day. And in the new workshop, in the old one, I actually had a piece of like concrete wall behind me where I could hide stuff and nobody would be able to see it. So
Yeah.
it was, let's say, safe. And I'm gonna call it it was a little shame corner, so to speak, right? In the new
Yeah.
workshop, I don't have anywhere to hide anything,
Yeah.
and I want to. I might maybe at some point build a little thing, but everything is on the open. And so those shame corner instruments that I would literally hide from people because I don't want to showcase them. I don't have the time to work on them.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I know how to rework them to be decent. So they were, in my opinion, after a while, they were just a loss of time and emotionally uh, um, an anchor that would actually sink me. So it's like better to leave it alone, let it be. It's a loss. You have to accept the losses when the losses are there. Hide them. So here I have them over there. They look like I have them next to the blanks, so they look as cymbals on the way, so people don't ask about them. But this guy was here the whole day. So at some point, he just grabs one of he starts peeking around, and I'm like, hey, no, don't go there. It's not nothing there is for the taking. It, and I explained what it was, and he browsed around. He grabbed one thing, and I'm like, no, please, and come on, let me play it. And he just sits down, wants to play it, and immediately out of all the things that I've done, that I've spent time, this series that I've developed over the last, I don't know, close to a year now, 8, 9 months in development, that now I feel proud of them. Work that I was like excited for him to try. It was that thing that I consider to be a useless hunk of sadness
Yeah.
that actually somehow is like, oh wow, that's, and I'm like, no, please no.
Yeah.
So something
Totally.
very similar to what happened to
Wow.
you. And yeah, and that again puts me back on the point of like, oh well, of course I understand what I was doing then can be attractive now, and I also understand why I wanted to get away from it and explore other areas of, let's say, more clarity.
Yeah.
um but right now as we speak, the things that I'm producing now might be a bit of a medium. I might be on the 0 point of that wave, right? I'm not in the peak down, I'm not in the peak up, and it feels good to be a bit more detached
Yeah.
from
The work. Yeah.
expectations, from like, yeah, be a bit more fuck it, whatever,
Yeah.
and simultaneously now feel like even in my fuck it, whatever, given the study and the practice, things come out a bit more clear than they did before.
Yeah, I was gonna say when you were talking about like that was pretty profound what you were talking about the mastery and kind of getting to a Zen place, but then there's the murkiness and kind of out of the murkiness you sort of discover interesting things and I was thinking like yeah I just don't think I agree with anyone that would say that you must get to a place of pure Zen to really be a master. I think there's maybe more like a layer that exists above all of the chaos and the war. Like you said, that there's a layer above it where we feel like we should be at peace, or we should be farther along in our journey, or we should, all the shoulds. You should this, you should that, and all the judgment we level against ourselves. I think that mastery might maybe just a thought to throw out. Maybe mastery is actually coming to peace with the chaos, like knowing
Hmm.
that the chaos is there and not adding that extra layer of judgment that we add onto ourselves. And so, like, that was what I realized about because yesterday I was hammering a bunch of cymbals and I was looking at this cymbal that was number 4. And I was actually like using it as a reference. Like, okay, now where I'm at now, years later, I'm going to hammer like I'm trying to hammer
Yeah.
something like this. Like I'm gonna do things that like I wouldn't say is correct,
Yeah.
correct way to shape because I'm looking at it going that I would never do that now. And it felt so inspiring to kind of enter a state of like F it, like let it be. Like I was leaving these like weird flat portions and the weird bumps on one side and it was like, okay, I got to that point where I've trained myself to go, okay, there's an issue here. I'm going to fix it. But I was telling myself, don't like leave it. And then I was
Mhm.
moving on and then I'd come back to it and play it. And in my mind, I was just telling myself like, embrace that
Yeah.
murkiness, embrace it. Like, sure,
Yeah.
you might pick it up in 2 weeks and that you need to fix that thing, but maybe in 2 weeks you'll pick it up and go, whoa, it's settled. And it has that sense of controlled chaos that I'm always talking about trying to, I don't know, like add in a little bit more like chaos into my work and like
Yeah.
let there be more imperfection. And so maybe like mastery to me would be like maybe a definition of mastery is getting all the technique, getting to a good place, but then being able to access a part of your brain that's a beginner, being able to access that and then do the work through that beginner mindset, like a beginner mind. And then
Yeah.
also with that, you can't access the beginner mind and also be ashamed of yourself or also be like leveling all these judgments against your process. Like that's just me I'm talking to myself, but that's what I was thinking when you were talking about like mastery being the Zen place where you get to utter peace. But like there's so much that's come from chaos and war and
Yeah.
mystery and murkiness that has been that's where I've grown is in that area. That's where I've discovered so much that I wasn't expecting to discover. Um, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. As I was telling you, I don't even know that I want that. Like it's the I think even in the way that I'm telling you this right now, somebody would already be able to perceive the tension and the conflict because I'm telling that I think that I want it, but I don't think that I want it. Like even in that duplicity of uncertainty, I am somewhere in the middle, stretched between these two
yeah,
things, and I'm sure there's more than two things. By the way, assuming that there's only two accesses to
right.
any conflict, it's silly. There's many accesses acting simultaneously, but I'm just simplifying for, I guess, for the sake of a conversation. Um, but even there, knowing that makes me feel that that there might be something inside of me, some little devilish kind of like figure that actually likes it, that likes putting itself at a position of risk, at a position of suffering, at a position of like, even if things are fine, I
Yeah.
somehow always find the way of kind of like fucking up. So
Mm.
and
Yeah.
it feels like I find it. It doesn't feel like, oh, what a shame, unlucky me. I feel like I somehow
Like sought it out, maybe. You kind of like,
kind of,
yeah.
yeah. So I think
I,
that is part also of my work, and that is a part that I somehow want to escape, but at the same time feel proud of.
yeah.
Um, because I don't know, it feels more, okay, more is not the right word. It feels somehow true. Like
Yeah.
when I say the word true, I don't mean X or Y, it's less true than
Yeah.
when I am saying the words true, referring to myself and referring to the way that I perceive life and the way that I perceive things, and knowing that there's all of these, let's call them for simplicity, negative aspects, somehow make it feel more true to me. And I feel like what I'm doing is truthful. And that is important as hell for me. It does for me, it matters a lot. And I don't want to be bullshitting anybody by saying, no, it doesn't matter if my result is X or Y. It matters like crazy. I
Yeah.
obsess over my result, even though I want to uh, give that perception to the outer audience as if I am always about the way and where the blank wants to leads me. Yeah, there's an aspect of that for sure,
It's
but I
complicated. It's not, you can't boil it down with one simple.
no, I suffer over each little blank. I want each blank to be fantastic, and
Yeah.
I obsess and I dive and I put my head into it and I leave it on the ground one day angry and annoyed, and I come the next day and I try to like sit down and all right, let's go for it. What do I need to do? And all of these things that happen behind it. So I do care about the end result, and it's not. Uh, um, I don't have this attitude of like I flow with the current. That
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
that is not happening. That is happening to a very small degree, but it's not everything, right?
Yeah.
Um, but knowing that makes it feel like it's somehow true, like that what I'm doing is true, and that is, I would say, one of the most important things to me, even more important than the result. Not that the result doesn't matter, but
Yeah.
I want to know that what I'm doing I don't want to feel like a phony in anything. And
Dude, can I read you finish your thought? I'm gonna go grab a
go
book.
for it.
I want to read something. Okay, so took a little pause break there. Have you ever heard of this dude?
No.
Wendell Berry. So he's a farmer, or was a farmer. He might still be alive. He's a farmer and a poet. And dude, this is my I don't sometimes I feel like poetry is like real pretentious and stuff, but this guy I really dig his stuff. Um yeah, so this is from his book, The Mad Farmer Poems, and he has this poem entitled Number 9. He says, "Don't worry and fret about the crops. After you have done all you can for them, let them stand in the weather on their own. If the crop of any one year was all, a man would have to cut his throat every time it hailed. But the real products of any year's work are the farmer's mind and the cropland itself. If
Hmm.
he raises a good crop at the cost of belittling himself and diminishing the ground, he has gained nothing. He will have to begin over again the next spring, worse off than before. Let him receive the season's increment into his mind. Let him work it into the soil. The finest growth that farmland can produce is a careful farmer. Make the
Hmm.
human race a better head, make the world a better piece of ground."
Yeah. Nice.
I I don't know if that like necessarily connects to what you were saying, but like we're talking about this like this conflict and this we're trying to, you know, we're making a product, but there's so much of it that's like our personal stuff gets mixed in with it, and we're putting ourselves out there in a big way, and um like you're the kind of person I feel like when I hear your work, and granted, I haven't heard one of your cymbals in person, but I've heard plenty of cymbals recorded that I then heard in person. So I've trained
Mm.
myself to kind of know what a cymbal will actually sound like in the room, depending on different factors. But um, I hear your cymbals and I hear like there seems to be, and I've told you this off camera, but there seems to be this level of um I know you hate the word mastery, but there seems to be this level of understanding about your work and like a real, I can't say other than saying the word mastery, but because I know you and I are both not masters, right? We're working towards it, right? But maybe the word is intention. There seems like intense levels of intentionality in your work, but that's double, like, to me it means more because the symbols also sit in a place. They're not super pretty and super clean and super bright and super whatever. They sit in kind of like a darker, more smoky kind of sonic space,
Mm.
and they have this level of intentionality. And so um like I hear like the war you talk about, like I hear that come through in the work itself when I hear the cymbals being played. And I think that thing is something that connects with musicians. Like there's a great drummer that just picked up a ride of yours and was playing it on it, at his gig in Chicago. I think it was Chicago, maybe, but like that guy has, that dude is, he knew Elvin, right? Like he met Elvin. He studied with all these people. Like he's heard it all. Like,
Yeah.
and so there's something, maybe it's like the tortured artist thing that we kind of run in. We hear about, all the people that die at 27, all the musicians that die at 27. Um, so I don't know. Like I feel like there's like a good aspect to struggle and suffering
Yeah.
that, as long as we're like we don't lose ourselves, like lose our humanity. Like I think that poem, like this poem speaks to me so much because it it's talking about like, okay, you're producing a crop, but if all you care about is the crop, then you sacrifice your own your mind, you sacrifice the soil in which the crop grows. Then you're dead on arrival. You're never gonna last. And so it's
Mm.
talking about this like art, almost like a method to being an artist is like about cultivating the ground through which your product comes through. And like the product is almost like a byproduct of the more
Yeah.
important thing, which is our own like,
Process.
yeah, exactly. And like,
Mm.
um, yeah, I don't know. You were saying all that, and I just felt like dude, you are the artist doing this. Like you are on the path. Like a lot of times we think we like compare ourselves to others. Like I compare myself to whoever it is, and I go, man, they're just like so much farther down the road, and they know more than me. And um, but I don't know, just to know that you're like on the right path, I think is maybe hopefully can help kind of settle some of that weird shame stuff that we deal with when we try to like force ourselves into being a better
Yeah,
version.
shame. Shame is a word that I haven't used before during the conversation, and I think it's one of those words that really fits in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know I
Mm.
can only say that. I'm obviously not judging you or saying that that's what you're feeling. I feel like that's what I struggle
Yeah.
with. It's,
Yeah.
it's shame. It's like
Absolutely.
it's this level of like I'm judging myself and I'm shaming myself for not being where I feel like I need to be, or I'm not collected in a way and that I need to be collected in order to do what it is I dream of doing. And I'm like I'm a dad now, and I've got this little daughter, and I've got another kid on the way,
Oh,
and
wow. Okay,
yeah,
that's news.
yeah,
I
that's
didn't
the
know that one.
um, but like I get in my head, I go in the shop, and I'm just like a crazy person trying to do the work. And then I come up and it's time to like put her to bed, and I just walk her up into her room. We sit and we rock for a little bit. She puts her head on my shoulder and we just sit there. And then I'm like left going like I feel almost like torn apart because I'm so focused on this thing, this like craft that I'm doing, and like, oh man, this customer said this thing and they're not happy with their product, or this person's asking for this and I don't want to say it. And I get all into the mess of business, and then at the end of the day I'm just like putting my daughter down to sleep, and I'm realizing like this is what's important, or like
Yeah.
it's like the my mind, my environments, like the relationships that we cultivate, like the joy that we have is really where our work comes from. Like it has to kind of stem from something bigger for it
Mm,
to maybe mean more, like
yeah.
if anything makes sense.
Yeah, I actually have a similar experience to what you're describing when I was trying to go and make music, which is that I started to see and not only see it but feel a bit repelled by seeing many musicians in the music world that somehow were only finding nutrition in the same environment in which they found themselves, like the picture of the snake eating its own tail somehow.
Yes.
um, and and that felt, I don't know, somehow wrong, somehow lacking in a way. And for sure, I am certain that almost everybody that we listen to, that we enjoy, that we like, that we anybody could call a master or not, I'm sure these guys um, eat out of a different bowl
Yeah.
than the one that they make themselves. Yeah.
Right.
Um,
It's like what's the source? Like what's the source? Like if the source is yourself and the source is like, well, all the work I do and all the studying I do and all the practice I do and all my experiences, like if your source is yourself, not that that's necessarily,
but not
I'm,
only yourself, I mean yourself and your environment. Meaning, for
yeah,
example, in the case of music, obviously music needs to nurture itself from music. You will never do anything, learn anything in music if you do not consume music. That is a simple truth. But my point is that I feel like most music that we listen to, even though it has grown up in the mind of somebody that consumed ridiculous amounts of music, that the point of creation of what we are listening to, usually it's more than just music.
yeah, oh yeah,
And inspiration, yeah, like that. And I'm sure it's the same thing for every other branch of expression, and that somehow, like, music for music, drawing for drawing, sculpting for sculpting, all of these things are circular, and they lead nowhere but the tail of where you began. If you want to lead somewhere else, you need to break that and start
yeah.
exploring other. Yeah.
Well, okay, we're kind of wrapping around to the very beginning of this conversation where we're talking about like the people who are kind of out in front, cutting a new path. They don't know the outcome; they're just kind of exploring. And then there's everyone that kind of gathers around something that's successful and kind of stays in that path. That the people that kind of gather around and do it because it's working and because there's money to be made. Like that's kind of the snake eating its own tail, and it's really only going to last until the winds change and then people are interested in something else. Like people are very interested in the work we do now. Like there's a subset of people very interested in it, but that might not last. I don't know. I have no idea to know. I don't know the future. And so
We cross our fingers.
yeah, we hope. And that's kind of why, like, I try to develop a lot of different things. That's one reason why I try to develop different things, because if I get in a car wreck and my hand gets destroyed, like, okay, what am I going to do for a living? I got a family. I got a mortgage, all this stuff. Um, but yeah, like the source, I like you because it makes me think about jazz. Like the one true American art form, jazz.
Mm.
And like, where does it come from? It doesn't come from like this crazy skill and these people that came up with this crazy music, and it comes from suffering, comes from Black culture, it comes from the society of the early 1900s and like what was happening and it comes from all of this like turmoil and murkiness, and then you have these voices that emerged that were saying something. They were saying something powerful, and people latched on to it. And now we live in a world where you can go to school to learn jazz. It's
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like, and the
Yeah.
people that are there to just learn jazz and whatnot, some of them are amazing, but it's like, are they learning it just for are they the snake eating their own tail, just kind of learning it because they want to be the best? Or
Yeah,
are they, or do they have like a life experience that they're allowing into their own work? Like, are they informed by their own,
exactly.
you know what I mean? Like that to me, like the truth. You're talking about the truth. Like that to me is the truth. Like, is someone gonna allow their life experience to come through in their work? And are you gonna sense that there's something deep there, or is it gonna feel just kind of cheap and shallow? Like,
And I want to add that I don't know what the truth is, but that I sometimes have a feeling that something is true. Like I don't know if that's a like a like something that I can decipher and communicate with words. At, maybe not now, maybe in the future. But what I wanted to say with that moment is that some things feel true and some things don't. I think there's a deeper part of whatever we are that it's good filtering bullshit. And sometimes I can catch myself on that part and I don't like it. So I want whatever I do to at least trigger the filter and the beeping machine in my head that it's that shit is at least true. I use it almost like a crutch of saying, well, yeah, maybe this instrument is not what I wanted. Maybe I spent more time than I should. Maybe I fucked it up here out of being stubborn. Maybe my ears don't work like I think they did. Maybe X and Y, and I don't want to keep on going because I could spend the next 10 minutes saying the many things that are always happening in my brain and in my emotional state. But the crutch is saying to myself, well, yeah, that's happening, but at least it's true. But
mm,
at least you're true. But at least there's something essential
yeah.
in there. And I mean, let's grab whatever I can. Let's be happy about that, about
Well,
the
it
fact that
sounds like
something feels true.
it sounds a little bit like you're and I've studied a lot of, like, I've read a lot of books on psychology and a lot of, like, maybe for lack of a better term, like personal, like, self-help books. Maybe not the cheesy self-help, but like more like, I don't know. But one idea that comes up a lot is this idea of how you deal with suffering and how you deal with the negative stuff in life. And there's a method of avoiding it, and then there's the method of embracing it. And almost like suffering being something you enter into and go through,
Yeah.
and that's been the place I've always wanted to be. Is like, if I want to become the kind of person that embraces suffering, doesn't run from it,
Mm.
get through it. Because like anytime you get through suffering, you come out on the other end stronger. You come out on the other end like more confident and more self-assured that you're on the right path, or at least you're on the journey heading in the direction, whatever that direction is. But the people, and so it sounds to me like what I hear when you say that is that you're embracing the process of, you're an artist, you have an
I
artist.
am giving myself to it. I don't know that I'm
Yeah.
embracing it, but I'm just like heck with it. I guess I'm here, and
Yeah.
and that's yeah. And there's nothing. I cannot disappear, right? I cannot suddenly evaporate. So I'm here, and I'm in
You
it.
are here because I mean your work lately has been, I mean, every time we've talked, yeah, I follow you and like follow all the stuff that you post, and the work is speaking for itself, and it's like there's something deep that you have that
Thank
I really love. And I feel like anyone listening to this, like, check out Quijano Cymbals. How do you spell it? Just so
It's
the website.
Quijano.
One thing I like about you, Mariano, is you are one of the real ones. I feel like, there's a lot of us. I feel like they can just kind of say trite. I do it all the time. Say things just because it's the thing everyone says. Like, oh, he's a master, or that was master. And I always find you to be like just a very like no nonsense, shoot straight kind of person. But I kind of am with you on the master thing. I've had people say that to me, and
I love nonsense, by the way. I think,
well, nonsense with a little wink and a nod, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
true. But like, I feel like true chaos
self-aware
and true
nonsense.
nonsense, it's beautiful to observe. When you find somebody that's tapped into the weirdest of non it's the non sequitur kind of like expression forms. That's fantastic because I feel like that's universe. Like it's
Oh,
like
yeah.
no nonsense. Sorry,
Yeah.
all nonsense.
All
Uh,
nonsense. Yeah. Awesome. Well, Mariana, thank you so much for being a part of this.
Alrighty.
It's like maybe the most like exploratory, just out in the clouds
Yeah.
podcast I've ever had, and I love it. I'm really here
Nice.
for it. So
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
drop a comment below. Let us know what you think about this exploration into the universe. And thanks guys for listening. This has been the Reverie Podcast.